Hello, everyone, and welcome to my LinkedIn Live event. Today I have a special guest with me, Charles Floate, who I will let in just a short while. And just to let you know, I've been following Charles for a long time. I'm a bit of a fanboy, and it's my birthday today, so it's really a gift to myself. But it's also very relevant to talk to Charles now because we're going to talk about Parasite SEO. And that's a super hot topic at the moment. And Charles is really the go-to guy when you need to know everything about Parasite SEO. So I hope this will be really an exciting talk that we will have with him today. So let me open up my window here. Hello, Charles.
Hey, Christopher, happy birthday. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you very much. So Charles, you're in Thailand. So it's in the afternoon right now. I understand 4 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Charles, to start out, it could be great. You know, we met up in Dubai for the first time. I've been following you for a while, and this was back 3 weeks ago. It was a 2-day, very intensive SEO and AI conference, and you were together with White Press. You were the one holding the event, and we had around 100 people attending from around the world. Super sharp audience, I must say. So from those 2 days, what would you say were your biggest insights or aha moments from listening to the talks, from talking to people during the mastermind, etc.?
Yeah, so number one, right, it's quite difficult to give highlights around the presentations because everybody kind of brought their own individual style around how they're using AI in their SEO businesses, right? So I don't want to necessarily say that anybody had, better than anybody else because it was really interesting depending on what you're doing, being able to speak to those people and see how they've implemented AI because at that time anyway, and in my opinion, most of those speakers were like up here in comparison to everyone else using AI right in SEO. My main kind of key takeaways in terms of business stuff. Number one, Corey's presentation in terms of how he's using custom GPTs was mind blowing, right? He's using something like 34 different custom GPTs to analyze and improve one piece of content, which was just completely mind-blowing. But obviously that then ends with that piece of content being the most optimized piece of content you have ever seen for search engines. And then also Corey mentioned a really, really interesting insight, which was that prior to AI kind of being so commercially available and all of these tools and things being at our disposal, the notion of having a one-man billion-dollar business was kind of an imaginary thought, right? You needed people to run things, do things, that kind of stuff. Nowadays, it is getting to a stage where that is coming more and more to reality, where we are going to start having one man or one woman billion-dollar companies, right? Which was absolutely kind of mind-blowing and awe-inspiring, and to kind of see how Corey was utilizing that in his own pursuit of becoming a one-man billion-dollar company. Then we had Gareth Simpson and Chris Pantelli talk about AI and how they're using it in digital PR mostly, and that was just awesome. Between them, they generated something like 10,000 DR70 plus links last year, which using AI, right? Which is also in of itself mind-blowing. And then there was just a load of other fantastic talks around kind of content and NLP and how we're analyzing and using content going forward, and also how Google wants to kind of seem as if it's one step ahead with everything, but actually it seems in reality they're one step behind most of these releases. Right?
Yeah, and that actually leads me to my second question. What is the state of Google right now? We know there's a new head of search appointed. Well, it was made public some hours ago. It's an engineer who has been with Google since 2003. I mean, will that change anything, or are they a bit challenged at the moment with their search?
I definitely think that Google is such a big red tape corporate entity that no individual is going to change shit unless you're talking about the CEO genuinely kind of from top to bottom reshaping it. But in terms of how I think about Google's search quality right now, I think that the current search quality is worse than it was, say, before AI kind of thing. But I don't necessarily blame it on AI content or necessarily on AI itself for the results, like a lot of people do in SEO. I think that it's a symptom of the disease that we're kind of seeing with Google's quality search results going into the toilet, and especially in certain niches and certain keywords, you're seeing literally like hackers and malware spreaders taking the top few positions, which that obviously is just completely against any kind of belief that you should have, right? Because if at the end of the day, we still want to try and make money and encourage users and do something good for the user, but you don't want to be promoting hacking and malware and spamming and stuff, right? And that's genuinely what Google's algorithms seem to have done in the last couple of years and months. And we've even seen it to the state with Reddit, right? Where Reddit is just ranking for everything. And again, that plays into its own internal company politics, where Google is probably doing it in some vein because of this AI data deal that they're doing with Reddit, and it's a pretty cheap data deal if you look at it on the surface. And then if you look at it beyond the surface, that it's actually because Reddit are trying to IPO, and if they can have this massive surge in organic traffic, and they double or triple their traffic overnight in the space of 12 months running up to the IPO, then that IPO valuation does go substantially ballooned, right? So I think that in general, Google is showing their face as like a corporate soulless entity, to be honest, right? And like, I don't know why people didn't expect it from the company that has got the most antitrust and anti-competitive lawsuits in history, right? Like, they paid more judgments than any other company in history for being anti-competitive, and yet everybody thinks for some reason that Google is on their side, which is just mind-boggling to me. So I think, number one, they've shown their corporate side. Number two, they've shown their lack of prowess when it comes to this algorithm. Because like I wasn't the first person to say it, but there's been a few people that have been basically calling it a Franken algorithm or an algorithm style kind of thing, where it's this mishmash of people over the years who have come and go at Google contributing, and that nobody really has an idea of, or a holistic idea of how this algorithm works anymore. And nobody will, right? And it's just impossible to be able to do that at this stage unless they do a fundamental restart with the algorithm, which obviously is not going to happen. And then also it kind of shows that Google just double down, and if not triple down, on everything that they ever say and do. So a lot of the time, Google for the last few months have been talking to the SEO community via Danny Sullivan, asking for examples of bad searches, saying that Parasite SEO is doing this, saying that X, Y, and Z is doing that, and things. And then the recent update comes out, and it's just completely doubled down on HCU, even though they were telling everybody that actually maybe we've got HCU a little bit wrong, but no, actually we're going to bake it into the algorithm and make sure that it affects everybody now. I think that is, again, showing face for what they really are.
Great. Well, thanks for that answer. I think let's stick to the plan here, because I love to pick your brain on any topic here, but today it's Parasite SEO, and it's very relevant what you're talking about what Google is, because it opens up new opportunities for these different techniques like Parasite SEO. So basically, the topic of today is how to win with Parasite SEO. And I thought, Charles, you have one of the most colorful backgrounds in SEO, and it could be great, I think, for the listeners here to just hear your story before we dive into what is Parasite SEO and how should you work with it. And everybody, of course, who's listening in, if you have any questions, do put them in the chat, and we'll at the end we can take some of those questions.
Yep. For sure. So, do you want me to give a bit of a backstory then?
Yeah, give me that. Give me a 2-minute brief on your story. That would be great.
Okay, 2 minutes could be 2 hours realistically, but for the breakdown, I started in SEO because my mom and stepdad had opened this company. They had 2 or 3 employees manufacturing furniture in the UK. They went and decided, hey, look, we need to build a website, and we need to get customers to this website because it's going to be an e-commerce website. They went to an agency in the UK. This agency ruthlessly scammed them for about £30,000 to £40,000 at the time. The same amount of wages that we were paying in HR costs for the entire company, right? It was like our HR costs for a year basically got scammed. They delivered a website, but they owned, in the contract, they owned the domain name. It was a custom CMS that was terrible. If you wanted to use your eBay, Amazon account, it was linked to the website, and you could only use it through their website, and they had to take like a percentage of your sales. It was ridiculous, right? So my mom was basically like, look, at the end of the day, the only thing that isn't in this contract that they don't have control of is the SEO or and she didn't even know what SEO was, right? She said, look, it says in this contract that if we get sales through other channels, that's our sales. But any sales through their channels is their sales, right? So she said, look, I'll give you $500, go and see what you can do. A few months later, we were ranking and pulling in 100 sales a day of high-end furniture. And then a few years later, sorry, I hated high school, got kicked out of high school and went for hacking, and then ended up getting arrested for hacking at the airport coming back from Canada by the Heathrow anti-terrorist squad, who had like laser dot fucking MP4s on my chest and things. It was really insane. They ended up giving me community service because I conspired to hack the FBI and the Home Office, and there was hacks that happened. And then I ended up kind of getting out of that with just the community service. The judge really liked me. The police completely screwed up the case. And then I built several companies. I built an agency, sold 2 agencies. I have currently own a couple of SaaSes, a portfolio of websites in the Nordics, and a consultancy, and some training businesses and some other ventures and stuff as well.
Wow, I'm looking forward to the biography one day.
Yes.
So, but you're roaming around in the Nordics. I mean, you're doing SEO in Denmark.
Not necessarily in Denmark, mostly in Norway.
Mostly in Norway. Okay.
Yes, because the CPAs are higher.
Yeah.
But I've tried Denmark a couple of times as well. It's just actually weirdly the competition is a bit higher in Denmark, and the CPAs are lower. So it's just better to go to the where the competition is lower and the CPAs are higher. That's my cup of tea.
Okay, and that taps into my last question before Parasite SEO. Your SEO playbook for 2024. I think a lot of people would like to hear about that, because there are probably some new things coming into it, and also it might be something involving what markets to pick, and where's the highest ROI, both geographically and which markets to target.
Yeah, so number one, it's very dependent on who you are, on what kind of playbook you should be following, right? You should 100% lean into your own personal skills and your connections and your knowledge of the world and understanding of things, right? Too many people don't realize that they have got expertise or they've got knowledge of a certain subject and field that actually could create a lot higher ROI because you already know this field and you can already immediately go into it, and you don't have to spend the first 3 months just researching what the terms are for X, Y, and Z field, right? And you can just immediately go and start trying to build and make money. And again, because if you're using Parasite SEO, a lot of the time people are like, oh, you can't make SEO, you can't make money immediately in SEO. You can with Parasite SEO. It can literally take you a day or two, and you can be ranking number 1 and banking some cash. So I think it very much depends on who you are, what you know, what languages you speak, all of that kind of thing. But in terms of my own personal playbook and how I see things playing out, number 1, I'm making sure that my team is the most efficient with AI they possibly can be, because I'm trying to make one person now the same as 10 people in a team last year, and I'm just trying to make my team progressing more and more efficient at their specific tasks. And a lot of the time that doesn't mean me going in and saying you need to do X, Y, and Z with this. It means, hey, look, what do you think you need to improve your efficiency on this work? Have you seen any new tools? You're a designer. Give me some AI design tools that you've been hearing about, right? I don't follow these niches in these fields, so I want to try and get as much insight from my people as possible. Make sure my team is really efficient. Then number 2, I'm maximizing whatever is giving me the most ROI. So right now, and for the last kind of year or so, Parasite SEO has been working phenomenally, right? So I've just been maximizing and funneling all my capital, especially from my niche sites that have been getting wrecked, right? English niche sites have been performing terribly. So I'm just like, I'm not going to focus on them, because again, I'm maximizing my ROI. So I'm just going to focus on my projects that are making me good money. So I've just been funneling cash flow into Parasite SEO. If Parasite SEO stops working in the next 2 months, as Google is claiming it's going to stop working in May, when everybody has to tag their pages, I will just transition to something else. However, a lot of people think that Parasite SEO will get killed because of X, Y, and Z. And it has been the case however long that Google has made authority a thing within its algorithm, that Parasite SEO has been a thing. So as long as Google has a link-based, authority-based algorithm, Parasite SEO will always continue to work. It's just that Google will hit specific sites that are abusing it to a specific extent, right? But again, these are all manual effects. They're not algorithmic effects. And a lot of what people are seeing over the last couple of months especially are manual effects. They're manual penalties and things, and manual de-indexations and not the algorithm affecting sites. And I think that shows that Google is kind of not being able to get the algorithm up to its standards to be able to deal with Parasite SEO and these other kind of techniques. So they have to scare everybody and fearmonger using manual actions. And it's also very expensive to go and manually hit 500,000 websites. Right?
And they did a lot of these manual penalties when they did the last core update / HCU, right? Just as PR, I assume.
Yes,
and
exactly,
people get things mixed up on the way.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and it's an intentional thing, right? A lot of people are like, oh no, it's Google are just doing it at the same time because it's good for PR. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. It's good for PR because it's fear mongering and people are getting confused. And it seems like the two things are correlated when they're not at all, right?
Perfect. Great. So that was about you, Charles. Everybody knows you now. Everybody knows your playbook for 2024. Let's dive into Parasite SEO. So maybe you could explain a little bit about, if we can just jump to the first page here, because Parasite SEO, if you can explain that to us, just the definition, so everybody is on board.
Yeah, so Parasite SEO is, again, because Google favors links and authority to such a degree, if you can create or buy pages on these domains that have got such a high degree of authority, now I'm talking like domain authority or domain rank 80 or 90 or 95 and things like this, then Google will just favor that authority to such a degree that it automatically trusts that page as soon as it goes live, and B, it will automatically allow it to have authority within pretty much any niche that you want to go in, because these websites are generic authorities. They're not a topical authority on knitting or on airsoft or on hats and things, right? They're an authority on everything because of how many pages they have and because of how much link authority they have. And as a result, because you can create or buy pages on them, these pages will or should immediately rank for keywords as long as you have done your due diligence and your correct optimization work.
So an example could be best hairdryer on Rolling Stone magazine, right? Something like
exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, if we talk about Denmark, I mean, we even seen it on IT forums. We see them suddenly ranking #1 for Barbie doll, different adult themed keywords. So it's definitely also something we're noticing here. And I think that the DR in Denmark is probably a little bit lower than internationally, but I mean, it's the same idea. So this is just to show you guys out there an example. This is from a LinkedIn Pulse article where actually somebody is ranking #1 via LinkedIn. And I also did, just before this, some days ago, I did my own Parasite SEO article in Denmark. It ranks now #1 for the Danish searches. I think it's if you go in and look for that, you can probably find it. So that's, just to give you some examples. And before we talked here, Charles, is this only black hat, or can it also be used as a white hat method? Because in my case here, this is something, I work on agency side. I explain what Parasite SEO is. It's easier to rank on LinkedIn than on our own website for this kind of term. For me, it's pretty white hat, this method. I'm just explaining about an SEO technique, but how do you see it?
Yeah, so prior to the recent updates, you could say that a lot of it was white hat, right? But unfortunately, Google has now, and if your definition of white hat is nothing against Google's guidelines, which is the majority of people's definitions of white hat, then unfortunately now Google's guidelines specifically say if you are using any website for reputational abuse, aka authority abuse, aka Parasite SEO, then it is against the guidelines. However, there are specific use cases that would still be classed as white hat, right? So for an example, you can still create video content on YouTube videos for topics that you have already got on your blog, right? And you should be encouraged to do that because it's multi-tiered, multi-channel marketing. Those videos and those YouTube videos would still probably rank for those keywords, right? And if anything, it's Parasite SEO can still be done to effectively rank in YouTube search, because people get very, very late tunnel visioned that Google is SEO when actually it's search engine optimization, not Google optimization, right? And YouTube has a search engine, Amazon has a search engine, all these kind of things. So you could say that you could do Parasite SEO white hat within YouTube search itself, and that's not necessarily black hat, right? And likewise, you could also do Parasite SEO for online reputation management. So you could create loads of social profiles, loads of citations, and loads of digital PR articles about a brand to try and control the first page of that brand, especially if there's been some negative press, or you've seen, like, as an example, in America, I don't know if it's necessarily the best practice in the world, but they publicize bankruptcies. So if you file for bankruptcy, you then have a listing, which is a pretty high up listing because it's a .gov, right? With your name, your date of birth, everything attached, then that you went bankrupt. Now, for a lot of people, if they're trying to start a new business or trying to invest in things like that, that's really damaging to their reputation, right? And I wouldn't say that it's necessarily black hat to go and create social profiles and citations and digital PR and stuff like that, just to de-rank those kinds of pages. So I would say that that is still a white hat way to do it. So there's definitely still styles and approaches in Parasite SEO that is white hat. But unfortunately, now that Google has got these new policy guidelines and things, the majority of traditional Parasite SEO is now black hat. But again, I don't really give a rat's ass about the Google's guidelines. So they can say whatever they want. I'm still sticking to whatever's working. And again, if you're building pages on other people's websites, as long as you're not linking to your own website, and as long as you're using like intermediary affiliate links or redirect links and things like that as your CTA links, then you're not risking your own website at any stage. A lot of people seem to think that using Parasite SEO, you're risking your website. But why are you ever linking to your website using Parasite SEO? Just link to the affiliate links, or link to a CTA, or link to redirects and things like that, right? You never need to actually risk your own website using Parasite SEO. And if anything, you can boost up your website because you're taking more of the SERP for individual keywords using Parasite SEO pages on top of your own website. So if your own website, is position number 2 or number 1 or number 3 for this keyword, you could then go and create 5 or 6 or 10 Parasite pages and take number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 6, number 8, right? And start taking multiple positions in the SERPs on top of your own website. And then bear in mind, because we now have SGE, if SGE then rolls out and you control 8 of the 10 positions in the SERP, that SGE message is now your message, because it's the consensus of the data that you put on the top 8 out of 10 pages, which should be all the same information, right? Because they're your pages. And SGE now spits out whatever you want it to say because you control the top 10 pages. You control the SGE narrative, basically.
I also think that Parasite SEO is just a very bad name. Because PR agencies, they've been working for years to get down bad results for their clients. We don't call it Parasite SEO here; we just call it PR work, right? So, maybe I think, okay, I understand that Parasite SEO comes from a black hat environment. For me personally, I would still say that doing a LinkedIn Pulse article is something which can actually be something which is just which is something decent. It doesn't have to be about best hair dryers or something else, something fully out of context. But okay, I hear you. So actually, now you're tapping a little bit into your process, your thought process of doing Parasite SEO. I would love to get your thoughts on what are the steps that you're taking when you want to win with Parasite SEO. So maybe you could do a fictitious example of saying, okay, you create a business tomorrow. What would be your process?
So it would depend on what I'm promoting, right? So I saw that Michael Steinberg, I think, asked in the comments about how I would represent a company without linking to the website. I can give 2 examples, right? So with the first example, as an example with this comment, Michael, I can often, if you're promoting an e-commerce brand, for example, you can go and find searches like best hairdryer, right? You find the Reddit post that's ranking, or you create new Reddit posts that are ranking, and in the comments you put your brand as the most recommended thing in the comments, and then you can, again, I do it, you don't have to do it, but I manipulate the upvotes in Reddit to make sure that my comment is number 1. So it could be a genuine user has asked, what's the best hair curling hairstyler? I've then gone in with my Reddit account, which has 100,000 karma that I bought off some Russians, has ended up coming straight away into the comments. I've then upvoted it, manipulated it, and then when you Google best hairdryer or hairstyle and curlist, and you click the Reddit link, I'm there number one. It doesn't link to your website at all, but it still promotes it, and it feels organic, and it feels like a user has recommended it, and it's really, really powerful, especially for new brands. So we do it a lot with like TikTok brands. They come to us and they're like, how can we use Parasite SEO for our new product? And like, what? And especially it's just blown up on TikTok. We're getting like 1 million brand searches a day because it's getting 100 million views a day on TikTok for all these videos. How can we control it? And I always say that the first thing that you need to do is start creating Parasite articles on your product brand and brand name and anything related to it, right? It might not be, you might have called your water gun like the Water Gun 2000 or whatever, right? But people might be searching water blaster because of how people have commented on it. So you need to do that analysis first, find out what people are searching for, and then just try and post there as a fake user. The second example is that I would create articles on news websites. So you can buy it on all sorts of news articles, on all sorts of news organizations, right? There's tons and tons of sites out there. I'm talking thousands of news websites that you can buy articles on. And I'll go and create roundups. So like 10 best hairstylists or 10 best hair color or whatever. And I'll just stick my product number one. Again, you don't necessarily need to link it. If you do link it, then we always create a fake affiliate link. Even if we own the brand, we want to make it seem like an affiliate is doing this so that we have that intermediary, that kind of, it wasn't us, it was, but it wasn't us kind of thing, it's Shaggy, it wasn't me kind of thing. We want that kind of aspect. So we always try and make an affiliate account and then put that affiliate link through a redirect link so it's even more out the way. And then again, that's how we generally promote a lot of the things without ever even linking to the pages or sites. When we're trying to promote stuff that we're doing. So I can give you an example. Last year, I was ranking for about 6 months for best hair transplant Turkey, right? Using a page on outlookindia.com. So for Turkey, right? Outlook India and Turkey, it was ranked number one. And we would get about 3 to 4 CPAs per day for that query. And we would get between $25 and $75 for that specific article. We were at the same article or it was on the same website. It might have been a different article, but it was the same website every day for 6 months solidly. And we only bought on that entire website about 8 articles and they were $250 each. And we could make that in a day, right? Of just on the lead generation. So we spent hardly anything for this campaign. I managed to get an ROI in the 13 or 14,000%. It's just absolutely ridiculous, right? And you don't see that sort of an ROI anywhere when it comes to niche site blogging or little local blogging and things like that. And especially like I was talking about Reddit earlier, Parasite SEO has kind of been augmented by the fact that Google have favored UGC so much. So it used to be the fact that Parasite SEO was the Mac Daddy because of authority. Now it's authority and the fact that Google also turbocharge UGC signals or user-generated content signals. So you can have like Reddit, or you can have, if you go and look up the lawnforum.com, right? Go and put the lawn forum into SEMrush and Ahrefs. It has 16x traffic since September HCU in the space of a week. And it's a forum for lawn care hobbyists. And you'll see that actually the company behind it is using AI bots to reply to posts and create threads and things on the forums for a topical map keyword. So that in and of itself is 100%, black hat and spam and stuff, but it's absolutely slaying it using the fact that Google has turbocharged UGC signals. And it's not even UGC, it's just AI bots talking to each other. So it's one of those, right? Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you for insights on this. I was just thinking when, normally when I work with brands in my daily work, and we always end up on this thing about, who's going to own the best queries or the versus queries. It's very difficult for a brand itself to own these, and there you should definitely work with influencers or somebody else to get your say, get your market share there. I mean, I could definitely see it work as an arm's length strategy to actually go in and think of Parasite SEO as an option.
You can also use it as a test, right? So a lot of people, it's pretty hard to go into a SERP And before you go into it and commit, tens of thousands of euros to building a website and doing link building and CRO and all this crazy stuff, right? You could commit $1,000 to a few Parasite pages, see if they rank, see what the conversion rate is of that SERP, see what the affiliate commissions are, see if you're actually going to get paid on those affiliate commissions, see all these things by testing it with a very, very small budget, but you can do that in Parasite SEO. And then that gives you a huge amount of data that you can use when building out that website, right? And that it's a lot more powerful knowing straight away that this keyword really ranks well and makes a lot of profit, but this keyword doesn't make much profit. So let's focus more here than focus here, right? So I always say as well that you can use it as a sort of test and sandbox before you go into a niche or before you go into, even if you're looking at buying websites in a specific niche or something, right? You can use it as a test to see and collect data beforehand.
All right. You actually, I think you were some days ago on X, you were actually talking about buying up websites in 2024 as part of the strategy. Is this a new focus for you? Is it something you've always done, and is it more relevant here in 2024 than before? I know in the gaming industry that's part of the playbook to buy up sites when you want to enter new markets. We have Better Collective in Denmark, gaming affiliate sites. I mean, that's the way they enter new market. What are your thoughts on this strategy?
Yeah, so I've liked buying and acquiring sites for a long time, just because it immediately gives you that jump of authority and relevancy. You don't have to wait to see if sites index. You don't have to wait for the sandbox and all that kind of stuff, right? You can just immediately start going and building pages, and generally most of them are going to start ranking. However, during the last few years, multipliers have just continued to go down and down and down, right? So previously, some sites you would be getting 40 to 50x net monthly profit earnings, and now you're talking like 20 to 30, right? So I've been trying as much as possible recently to, if I'm going to buy a website, I'm only buying it to get a really, really good deal. I'm paying like 12x monthly net profit. So I'm paying a year of monthly net profit, which is really, really low. But that saves me from the fact that if new AI technologies or new changes come out and they drop to 10x multipliers, I'm not that badly burnt. The reason I really like buying them for Parasite pages specifically is that you can generally go in and get expired domains, or you can get sites that have been inactive or things like that for very cheap. So we've gone in and just mass outreach to 1,000 domains that we can find in SERPs that, they're like DR3, 4, 5, 10, 12, things like that. But they haven't had any new content on them for a year or 2 years, 3 years. We've been able to buy them for like $300-$400, even though it's a blog with 120 posts on it and they've been active for 5 years. They just stopped recently, things like that. And we picked it up for $500. That is ridiculously cheap, but we don't necessarily want to go into that niche, right? And we still can make a lot of good money, and it might be a temporary niche as well, right? The fidget spinners were all the rage a few years ago. I know a lot of people who made some really good money out of using Parasite SEO for fidget spinners when they were there, especially around Christmas time, right? If you can do a similar thing where you can jump on trends, Parasite SEO becomes the number one tactic, because like I said, you can rank overnight. So you can start, especially any new keywords that don't have competition, you can just immediately go and flood the SERP with 10, 20, 30 pages. And it's guaranteed that one of them will hit top 3. And then eventually they're going to hit first place, right? And like I said, that means that you're more likely to control SG, more likely to control the feature snippet, all of these kind of things on top of it. So I think it's just a massively underrated tactic, and people are just more scared of it because of Google's propaganda than they are of Google's actual algorithm, right?
Okay, great. And you've been mentioning SGE a couple of times now. It's still in labs. Google has been a little bit back and forth of when it's going to be launched globally, etc. Just the other day in the office we were talking about, what is our approach to SGE, because we finally decided, we want to do what works now. I mean, that's also your mentality, but of course we also need to look ahead of what's going to come, or perhaps going to come. And me, my backstory is I've been listening to too many voice search talks, to be preparing too much for something like SGE. But what is your take on this? I mean, as an agency advising their clients, I mean, what would your recommendations be?
Yeah, so I think that SGE, it's inevitable, right? It will roll out because there's no way that Google doesn't let themselves be ahead of this technology, even though they're not ahead, right? They're like I said, there's this whole public perception that Google has to try and give out that they're ahead in AI, they're ahead in SEO, they're ahead in search, when they're not, right? So I think that it's inevitability. I don't know what percentage of SERPs it's going to roll out in. And when we first started testing it in December last year, right? So not even 2023, December 2022, sorry. That's when it first actually properly rolled out into labs. We were seeing very, very large amounts of SERPs being taken over. So you're talking about 80% of SERPs had an SGE box, and it would take 15 seconds to load, right? And everyone was like, oh, it's taking too long to load. It's not going to be implemented. Now it takes a second to load, but it's only showing up in about 20% of searches. So I think Google's really, really restricted on the search that it's come into. And there's been some reasoning behind that. There was a really, really good case study by Marie Haynes that she shared from somebody else, where they'd tried to find specific examples of SGE giving really bad outputs. And the first one that they tried was best leaders in history. And the first thing that came up was Adolf Hitler.
Oh, okay.
And
That's a bad result.
And then number 3 was Mao Zedong. So okay. And this was the first attempt that this journalist had tried in SGE to try and get a bad output. So I think that really scared Google, and it scared senior leadership. And then they've seen that when they've done these recent AI releases, that they backfired significantly because they've rushed them. So they've rushed the testing data, and it's showing fake testing data, and then really realized that it's showing it in the video, right? They have released this. They've released Gemini, and it's showing fake capabilities. They've released all of these things where it's faking it because they know it's not really there. And I think that kind of shows into the SGE hand, where I think that they're going to release it, and it will be superficial. So it'll affect like 5% or 10% of SERPs. Really easy stuff, you know. How many apples does an apple tree grow on average each year? Shit like that is going to be very much taken over by SGE. Do I think it's going to be giving you SGE for if you type in how do I cure my cancer? Probably not, right? That's where there's definitely going to be a line that the SGE will be cut off because Google doesn't want to have responsibility. So that's the main thing. Google currently has a very, very preferential position where it's not a publisher. So it doesn't have any legal responsibility on the content that it is sharing. As soon as SGE rolls out, that is now Google itself publishing content, and it makes the onus legally on Google. So if a kid Googles how to, do X, and it tells them to drink bleach or blow up their microwave, Google are now going to get sued by their parents because it was Google giving them that information and not a publisher that Google can put the blame on. So I think that is where it's going to be toned down massively, especially in certain niches. So like I said, if you're in like YMYL, I don't think that you're going to be nearly as affected. But if you're in informational content areas that aren't, life or death kind of scenarios and things, I think you should be really, really worried, and that you should be preparing it. But anyway, I also don't think that you should be basing really anything on a 100% content business anymore, because content is being degraded over time by AI massively. Even in the last couple of years or so, AI, content in certain niches was $100 per 1,000 words. Most of those writers are now struggling to charge $20 an hour. It's come for it massively, and I think that will just continue to be the case and continue to increase the degradation of content costs and things, right? So I don't think that anybody should be investing into 100% content focused businesses in the future, unless it's AI content focused businesses.
Will that also mean that links will become more valuable?
Yes. So and they have become more valuable, right? Even in the last 2 years, every link building agency that I'm speaking to is saying that their clients are spending more money on links, and that all of them are saying that they're spending a hell of a lot less money on content.
Yeah.
Right?
So
every single one I speak to. Yeah.
So it's the same budget, but reallocating it, basically. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Charles, I think, I'm just looking at the chat here and people really asking questions. I think it would be fair to, maybe just have some of these questions coming up. So let's have a Samuel here. Let's see what this question is. I mean, this is taken out of context of something you said earlier. So Samuel is asking, how would this work for a smaller business that doesn't have that much money for being 5, 10, 20, or however many domains? What would be the strategy for entering the Parasite SEO? Right. So entering Parasite SEO with a low budget, what should you do?
You can build exclusively free Parasite pages, right? So you don't actually need to buy any Parasite pages, buy domains, buy links, do any. You don't even need to buy content. You can just get AI to generate it for you and edit it, and it will still rank. So it's one of the most efficient, capital efficient strategies out there. When it comes to time, that's where you're going to get caught up in, right? Because it's all about analysis, research, building the content, finding the sites, monitoring and maintaining those pages, making sure they haven't been deleted, making sure they haven't been 301 or links change, all these things. That's where it's resource intensive. It's not very capital intensive, right? So if my strategy, number one, would be very much dependent on what you're trying to rank for. If you're trying to rank for very, very low competition keywords, Parasite SEO cleans up easily. There's multiple SERPs that I've come into where there's no Parasite domains ranking. All the domains like DR30 or 20, right? I create a post on a DR95 and it ranks number one the next day because my competition is just that weak, right? So it's very much dependent on your competition about how much capital you'll need. If you're wanting to rank for online casino, you're probably going to need a hell of a lot more capital than if you're ranking for, Granny's knitting guide or something, right? So I would always be focusing on the time it's going to take you to create those pages and what domains it's going to take to rank for them, aside from the capital. Because again, you can rank with zero capital in Parasite SEO, and you can also use Parasite SEO to build your capital. So you can just put all this time into ranking these pages, get commissions or get CPA commissions back, and then just build that war chest to invest in other activities, or other marketing, or other websites, or other assets.
I mean, what would you say if I can see on the top 10 results that they're all B2B websites? I mean, do I have a chance there of going into this with Parasite SEO, or ranking on a high authority site which is not present there? I mean,
technically, LinkedIn is a B2B website, right?
Yeah.
So there you go, right? So just use LinkedIn posts. It's all about matching the intent to the Parasite that you're going to be using, right? So as an example, a lot of people have been complaining that their pages have lost keywords to Reddit or to Quora or to forums and things. And I've told people that that's explicitly Google changing the intent of that SERP, right? If you've gone from ranking number 2 to nowhere, and suddenly it's just Reddit and Quora and forums and things, then that's Google telling you that the intent of that keyword has changed to UGC. And then it's no longer wanting blog articles and news publications and magazines. It wants UGC content, right? So the only way you're ever going to be able to rank that page is by using UGC content. And the only way you're going to be able to use UGC content is using Parasite SEO, right? Unless you go and buy Reddit, which is going to be $1 billion IPO deal soon. So I think that, like I said, I think it's very much dependent on what you're doing and what you need to be able to use to rank in that SERP. But the lower the competition, the easier it is to clean house with these kind of domains and pages.
Yeah, great. So this one was from Shafai. Is there a similarity between content syndication and Parasite SEO?
Yes and no. So the only similarity is something called link inversion, right? So link inversion is the concept that it doesn't matter on who published a page first. It's on whoever's page has the most authority, right? And that's how Google works. So you can publish an article first, and we've just seen it with that article from housefresh.com about independent publishers being killed by Google. And then ironically, that page was outranked for its own title by Reddit, right? So that's a perfect example. Is yes, you can actually get higher rankings using content syndication through channels like Reddit that Google just prefers because of authority and UGC signals. But you could also backfire it, right? Because you could end up creating content on domains that creates duplicate content to a main domain that could have ranked, but because it's got duplicate content on the other pages, it's now not ranking as well. And you could also, by accident, have one page that has more authority than the other page, but this page is better suited to ranking. But because this has more authority, this then takes over. And then you can have things like cannibalization and all sorts of things going on as well. So I dislike using content syndication as a form of Parasite SEO. A lot of people use like press releases for Parasite SEO, especially in financial niches, because you can do a press release through Yahoo Finance, and that ranks pretty well. And you can just get those syndicated links from the Yahoo press release to go back to the Yahoo press release. So all these syndicated links are just linking back up to this and giving it more authority, right? So that can work as well. But in general, I try to stray away from content syndication when it comes to Parasite.
All right, cool. So I will end this not with a question, but just with a comment from Stephen. So I think this is a good way to describe this session that we've all been through. I mean, you know more about Google than Google, Charles.
Yeah, I've probably been at it longer.
All right.
Yeah, there's a good thing for this though as well, right? Where it's like ego is the enemy. So it's Ryan Holiday's book, Ego is the Enemy, and I think that plays into Google's engineers, that they think that their algorithm is so good that it can't have faults. So it's survivorship bias or things like that, right? Where you think that it's working so well that you don't actually try to find and isolate and remove the things that have been negative in the algorithm. And that's why I try and look at things from like a zero emotional view and just try and see what's working, what's ranking, how I can monetize it, how I can do that. And it's basically an investor mentality, right? You don't ever want to emotionally react, because that's how you lose all your positions, right? You want to just make sure that everything is logical and based in data and analysis.
Yeah, but sometimes you have to make this leap of faith sometimes, right? I mean,
yeah, I'm a gambling man too, right? Like, you know.
Yeah, I can imagine, but I mean that's business in itself. You know, you have your data, you have your experience, and then you're taking these leap of faith in any business, whether this is working on Google or it's, you know, I have a little wine thing on the side. You know, if somebody wants to try Danish wine, then contact me. So I have a leap of faith in Danish wine, for instance, and that's where I'm investing my time. But I think that this was very helpful, Charles. You know, I actually, you know, I think that this was a good way to conclude it, that actually it's about testing things. It's about being a practitioner. It's not about reading Google's guidelines and believing that that's the truth and that's the law of how things should be done. It's definitely part of it. I mean, all what Corey's teachings are about, the one you mentioned in the beginning, he's very much looked into all Google's patterns and tried to understand how those works, and that's the way he
right.
That's his school of thought, right? But I think that's also what makes SEO so exciting, that there are different approaches, and anybody can inspire everybody to go in their way, in their direction. I think we all have a different approach to things, but I definitely liked all the things you said here, and I got a little bit more into my own tool set. So everyone, you know, thanks for the questions out there. We didn't go through all of them, but I think Charles has also got a busy day, and I have a birthday, so I need to go and celebrate a little bit as well. But thank you all for participating, and thank you, Charles, for participating. That was really nice of you. If you could just stay online while I'm shutting down the studio here. But everybody, have a great day.
Thank you for having me, and enjoy the Danish wine on your birthday, Christopher.
I will.